The Pac-12, decimated by defections the past couple of years, is slowly revitalizing itself with the addition of 5 schools seceding from the Mountain West. Those schools are Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State, plus Gonzaga, which is leaving the West Coast Conference. Those schools will join the 2 other members of the Pac-12, Oregon State and Washington State. All of the seceding Mountain West schools play football, but Gonzaga doesn't, leaving the Pac-12 in need of one more football-playing school in order to become a recognized NCAA Division I FBS football conference. On May 13, 2025, I discussed the issue of Pac-12 expansion with Bob Lundeberg, a Western United States freelance reporter and Oregon State University graduate currently working the Boise State beat for SI.com. Here's that interview with Bob Lundeberg on Saturday Sportsline Memories. Well, you did a series of articles reporting on possible Pac-12 additions, and to me, the most credible ones seem to be Texas State and New Mexico State, and maybe on a conditional basis, Sacramento State. With no media deal done for 2026, at least not right now, it's done for 2025, of course, where you have Oregon State and Washington State. What are the chances that 1, 2, or even 3 teams will be joining the Pac-12 in 2026?
Well, certainly at least one team is going to be joining the Pac-12 in 2026, unless there's an NCAA petition we're not aware of, because the conference needs one more football-playing member to qualify as an FBS conference. And it certainly does sound like, with where we're at now and with the information that's coming in, that I think Texas State is certainly most likely to be that 8th team for 2026, just for kind of a variety of reasons. The location is certainly ideal, or an intriguing location anyway in Texas, and a big football market, a state with a ton of people, a state that, while not in the current Pac-12 footprint, it isn't necessarily that far away. And Texas State is certainly a rising program that I think is on a trajectory where you could see Texas State being a valuable member of the conference, going into the second half of this decade and into the 2030s. So I do think Texas State has positioned themselves very well to receive an invitation. And at this point, I think I would be surprised if the 8th member of the Pac-12 is anybody other than Texas State.
Do you think in 2026 they would add someone besides Texas State, or just stay at 1 and see how it goes?
I think it really depends on multiple different factors. The outcome of the various lawsuits going on between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, the details of the upcoming media deal that you referenced that has yet to be completed. I just think with the number of hoops that need to be jumped through, and the fact that the Pac-12's drop dead date to add that 8th member is, we're coming up on 13, 14 months away from that. It seems like for 2026 that maybe only adding one member, which I think will be Texas State, it could be possible. But, from a scheduling, for logistics with dealing with scheduling and other things like that, I certainly know that there would be a benefit to having more than 8 football-playing members in a conference. So if a UNLV were to suddenly become available due to the outcome of the lawsuits, or maybe even a football-only situation from like a Memphis or a Tulane, I could see that happening. But I would say banking on Texas State being the 8th member, with the information we have right now, I think that's probably a pretty good bet.
One thing as an outsider, I live in the upper Midwest, so I don't get a lot of news out there in the Pacific time zone or the Pac-12 or the Mountain West, but it seems to me that the schools from the Mountain West who have already seceded from the conference, basically and announced their intentions to join the Pac-12, must have a pretty good idea that the media money they would be making in 2026 must greatly exceed what they're making in the Mountain West.
You would certainly think so, and it's part of the reason why I think a lot of us have been a little surprised that we're now into the middle of May and we haven't had the details of the media deal announced. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, there's some common sense stuff here. The 8 brands that are currently in the Pac-12 are vastly superior to the remaining brands in the Mountain West. We can certainly argue a UNLV or an Air Force might have a little bit more value than maybe like a Utah State or something like that. But the top of the entirety of the new Pac-12 is simply much stronger and more desirable from a media standpoint than what's left of the Mountain West. So there's no doubt in my mind that when the Pac-12 media deal is announced and then subsequently the Mountain West media deal is announced for a similar time period, the Pac-12 deal is going to be much greater than that. I am certain. But it is a little interesting that we haven't gotten firm numbers on that yet. I do think it's only a matter of time, but we've also heard that for a little while now, so it is a little bit interesting that this is still playing out before us.
Well, I don't mean to sound alarmist, but it sounds to me, excuse me, as if this thing doesn't get done soon for 2026, that the Pac-12 may be following in the footsteps of its predecessor commissioner. And you know what happened to him. Do you think whatever shape that media package takes would probably consist primarily of linear network, CW, ESPN, CBS, with a de-emphasis on streaming?
I truly don't know. I think what we're going to see is a variety of avenues. I am sure that the CW is going to be involved to some capacity just because they do appear to have an appetite to be adding more sports content. And the Oregon State and Washington State games that were on the CW last year received mostly positive reviews. And the CW has re-upped with Oregon State and Washington State for 2025. So I'm confident the CW will be involved. And just the fact that the Oregon State and Washington State have worked with ESPN, CBS, and Fox over the last 2 years, I think all those entities could be involved. And also, because we know with the previous Pac-12 with Commissioner Kliakov, like you mentioned, they were trying to get deals done with Apple, maybe at Amazon. So I think we could see a streamer come aboard if the price is right. But I do know just from what Teresa Gould, the new Pac-12 commissioner, has been saying that exposure is so important. So I do think that linear is going to be the majority of this package. I certainly don't know what the full details are, but it also wouldn't surprise me at all if the Pac-12 goes with CW and a CBS or Fox with a little ESPN sprinkled in, and that's pretty much the entire media deal.
And speaking of visibility, the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, which is prominent, excuse me, where I live, has gone to, especially late in the season, Tuesday and Wednesday evening games. Do you think that the Pac-12, once it gets its 8th football member, might do the same thing, going to something other than Saturday evenings and Saturday afternoons?
I think you can almost guarantee that the Pac-12 is going to have games on Friday nights. A lot of the Western teams, including the old Pac-12 and the Mountain West, have played on Friday nights for years and have had varying levels of success with it. I would be stunned if the Pac-12 does not have a Friday night package. As for days other than Friday or Saturday, I would be a little bit more surprised if anything came with that with the upcoming media deal. I've actually heard there's been a whisper here and there about potentially exploring some type of Sunday package, which obviously competing directly with the NFL would be an interesting move, a very creative move, a move that I'm not sure would be good from the visibility standpoint that they'd like, but it certainly is an option if they want to go that way. But in terms of the weeknight games, like what you mentioned with the MAC, a Tuesday or a Wednesday or maybe even a Thursday package, I do not expect the Pac-12 to have games on those days.
Okay. Bob, anything else that you'd like to add or you think listeners should know at this point?
I don't really think so. I was wondering if you were going to ask anything about a merger between the Pac-12 and Mountain West, because I know that's been a topic, and I don't think there's any chance of that happening, just because the Mountain West members that split away, they did that for a reason. The new Pac-12 is definitely, the goal is to be the best of the rest, to be the clear number 5 conference moving forward, and adding lower level Mountain West teams is just going to dilute the pot and hurt that. I can certainly see from like a Wyoming or a New Mexico standpoint, or Nevada, why they would want to do that. But I don't think there's any shot of any type of merger happening. These two conferences are certainly going to be split moving forward, and I do think that the Pac-12 is going to be in a much better position moving forward than the Mountain West.
Well, I didn't ask because I figured there was so much animosity between the two with all the lawsuits going back and forth that a reconciliation would be next to impossible anyway, but you never know, I guess.
You do never know, and the blood, the two sides are not on the best terms right now, and I do think that the outcome of the lawsuits is going to dictate some of this stuff. I mean, you can just never predict how things are going to play out, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to speculate on that, but it will be, I do think that is also probably holding up some of the media details, is that possibly we could be announcing a settlement between the two sides within a week. Who could really say on that?
All right, well, Bob, thank you very much for your time. I certainly appreciate it.